Welcome back to the 10-minute round. Today we're going to be recapping UFC 308 that went down over the weekend. And I just want to start off by saying it can be tough to become like a fan of certain fighters. You watch their career from the beginning, you kind of watch their rise, you become a fan of them either because of like their personality or their fights are entertaining, you like their style, whatever it is, but you kind of start to become a fan of guys. Myself, a big fan of Max Holloway, big fan of Robert Whittaker, and it's cool when they like make it to the top and they're champion. If they're lucky enough, they get to become champion and they win fights and it's exciting and it's fun to watch. But inevitably, if you stick around in this sport long enough, the next generation, the next wave of fighters is gonna show up and they're gonna pretty much beat the crap out of whatever fighter you like, and it's kind of depressing to watch, and it makes you sad. And I was, as much as I enjoyed the card over the weekend, I still feel a little bit for Max Holloway and Robert Whittaker, but it doesn't matter. Life goes on. That is how the sport goes. So instead, we're just gonna get right into the main event. What an impressive showing by Ilia Topuria. If you watched my previous video, I did say that I thought Ilia was going to win. I wasn't bold enough to be like, yeah, he's for sure going to knock Max Holloway out, because I just wasn't sure. I know you can't live and die by your chin in this sport. Everybody who has a really good chin, all these guys who are like, hey, that guy can take a really good punch. Eventually somebody comes around, or eventually you take enough punches that you go down. It's just how things work. Tony Ferguson used to have a dynamite chin. Look at him now. There's been other guys in the past. Chuck Liddell used to be able to take a shot like no other. And eventually, like a stiff breeze would put him out cold. But that's just how it works. So I didn't want to count on the fact that Max Holloway, his chin would last. But it was too hard for me to say, like, yeah, he's for sure going to get knocked out. But I think it became very apparent early on in the fight. The shots that Ilia was hitting Max with, like, those were some hard shots. And it felt to me like it was only a matter of time. Like Max either had to just avoid getting hit altogether, or it was just going to be a matter of time. And eventually Ilia did find him. For what it's worth, I enjoyed the fight. I thought it was a great fight. I think that Max did a good job in like staying in the center of the ring and not letting himself get like backed up towards the cage. He was always moving side to side. And he did have some success. I think on the scorecards, he didn't get either round 1 or 2, but I felt like he probably got one of those. I want to say it's the second round. I don't know. I'd have to rewatch it. But then again, man, I think Ilia did what he does. He was patient. He wasn't trying to rush the shot. He was kind of setting him up. He was doing a good job of playing like the Max likes to like kind of like throw his rear hand out there to kind of stuff your jab, and Ilia was kind of like figuring that out. Otherwise, like it was a good fight. I felt for Max. I think Ilia showed that he's on another level, that this past generation of 145ers, like Max Holloway, like, Volk. I know they're talking about doing the Volk rematch, and that's probably next. I don't know if it's a good idea. Honestly, like, I think Ilia's kind of past. I don't know what Volk would bring to the table. I do think Ilia wins that fight again. I think a more interesting matchup would probably be against Diego Lopez, because Diego Lopez he's not as clean as Ilia, but the dude's tough. He's young. He has dynamite in his hands. He's very threatening with submissions. Like he's a good. It doesn't look as pretty as Ilia, but he's a bit of a wild man. But he gets the job done. He hasn't lost. Since his debut. So I think it would be a good fight. I get it. We're probably going to do the Volk one. It is what it is. From what I saw this weekend, I think Ilia is just going to win that. Other than that, Khamzat Chimaev, dude, is just an absolute animal. Like, the first round Khamzat is so dangerous. I personally, like, in my video breakdown, I thought that Robert Whittaker would be able to kind of survive that first round onslaught and then kind of take over with cardio later on in the fight. Lo and behold, he didn't survive. He got his teeth pushed in. He got some dental rework done by Khamzat, And it is what it is. You could call it like a little bit of a freak injury, but apparently Robert Whitaker's had that issue before. He had that issue going into this fight. Khamzat, you know, he just happened to put a face crank on him and push his teeth in. And for what it's worth, like Khamzat, his star is still rising. Like all he has to do is fight consistently. And that's the only thing that's missing in his career is that he's not fighting consistently enough. But if he can, he's definitely next in line for the belt. I get it if they're still going to do the Sean Strickland and DDP fight, that's already on the books or that's already the plan. But Khamzat's next. Khamzat's for sure next. And I definitely think that either one of those opponents, he's probably going to be a heavy favorite going into that one too. Like, how do you have to just, your plan has to be to survive the first round against Khamzat. And I do think that was Robert Whitaker's plan. I do think that they knew that they were going to have to defend takedowns. They were going to have to get up, that it wasn't going to be easy, but you have to survive it. And I mean, obviously, like, Robert Whitaker's lower jaw just wasn't up to the task. But besides that, besides the co-main and the main, which I kind of think lived up to the hype, we did have the Magomed Ankalaev. It's just, he fought Alexander Rakic, and I didn't, like, it just wasn't exciting. It wasn't enough. Like, they're both good fighters, but it's just like you didn't really do anything super impressive. I get it. Like, Ankalaev, he's extremely well-rounded. Like, I know the idea is, and I think they might have even mentioned it on the broadcast, that if he were to fight Alex Pereira, he would take him down. But Magomed's not a bad kickboxer. That's more of his bread and butter. He's not like the other, Abraham Lincoln Beard guys where he's just going to go immediately for a takedown. Like, he's pretty legit on the feet. And that's where most of this fight took place. And but it was kind of ho-hum, man. Like, I feel like you got to make a statement when you're in that position, when you're the guy that wants to be next in line. Like, Khamzat made a statement. Magomed, you have to make a statement. I know he was saying that, like, Alexander wasn't engaging enough and wasn't letting him, like, implement his game. But, you got to figure that out. You got to go in there and take it. So it is what it is. We'll see if he gets Alex Pereira next. You kind of have to give it to him because, like, other than Alex Pereira going outside the weight class, like, what else is left? So, Lerone Murphy, that fight was that was weird, Danny Ige came out like dynamite the first round. He looked like, he dropped him. I think he had a takedown too. Danny Ige was looking decent, and then in the second round was just completely out of gas. And credit to Lerone Murphy, he was not. He took over second and third round. He took the fight. But again, it was kind of like, Danny is a hard guy to put away. But I really think that for what it's worth, like, Lerone Murphy didn't make enough of a statement there. Like, he's just kind of slowly moving up the ranks. The dude's undefeated. He's been in the UFC for a while now. He's not really a guy that you hear a lot of talk about, But we'll see, man. I guess he's starting to get, like, a little bit, like, featured on these cards. So, besides that, Shara won, double spinning back fist. That was pretty interesting, He's still getting kind of these favorable matchups. He's definitely not going to get a guy that's like a wrestler because he's just going to rack up wins on these, like, kickboxers that just aren't as good at kickboxing as he is. And so, it was still a very impressive knockout. It's still like I know he was practicing it during the open workouts. It's like the spinning double back fist, but to land it and finish the fight like that, it makes for a great highlight. We'll see who they give him next. Maybe somebody will start to get, like, into the top 15, start to get some ranked guys in there against him and see how he does, because you can only give him the favorable matchups for so long before, I know he called out Israel Adesanya, and that's a huge jump in competition, but, maybe who else is he going to fight? It's not like he has anybody on paper, so that it's a possibility that could happen, I don't know. Overall, fun card. I enjoyed it. Some sad, depressing results, but you kind of knew it was going to go that way. Sometimes it's just hard to admit it to yourself, but it is what it is. I'm excited to see where Ilia's career goes from here. I think the dude is, I've been pretty high on him as far as like, I just think he's an incredibly talented fighter. So we'll see what kind of legacy he builds at 145, because there's a lot of good fights there. From, I will say one thing. I think there's like, I'll see like little posts and everything talking about how like, oh, how would Ilia do against Islam? Like, we need to pump the brakes on that a little bit. Max Holloway did make him look small. You know, Max Holloway looked a lot bigger than Ilia in that fight. So I can't even imagine what he would like look like fighting the regular 155ers. Like, I know he did have that one fight at 55 that he took on short notice, and he won. He got the KO, but he looked tiny. So let's do the Volk fight. There's a contender in Diego Lopez. Let's get past those, and then we'll talk. We'll give it another year or so. But that's it for my recap today. Thank you all for watching. I will do some more videos. There's a Brandon Moreno fight coming up that I think we can talk about. And then pretty soon, John Jones, the GOAT. So we'll see. Anyway, that's it. Have a good one. Peace.